Hey, folks, welcome to Bouncing Brains. I'm Sean Hatfield.
And I am Freddy G. And today we have two lovely guests in the house or building. Damien Duque, an ambient musician, and an acoustic musician that goes by the name of Analyssa Shultis. How y'all doing?
Pretty good.
We're doing awesome.
Y'all would look more nervous than I am. Ladies and gentlemen, it's their
I think
first
you might be
time.
projecting, Freddie. They look fine.
It's their first time ever on any kind of podcast. So y'all know what that means. That means that me and Sean get to pop their cherries. It is awesome.
That sounds painful.
Yeah, it can be sometimes.
Freddie likes to throw the euphemisms out there early just so you know where you're at, what you're in for. You know what I mean?
Social Security.
If we're going to have the dramatic storm out, oh my God, at least we have it early so we can just riff on it for another half hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it happens at the end, then we have to stick around, do part 2 of the podcast. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Did he really say that? You're going to hear that a lot. Just be prepared.
Hear what?
Did he really say that? Yeah. Never mind. Y'all didn't get it. Let's move forward. Anyway.
You're just like, man, I do ambient music, man. That's all.
I'm just here.
How y'all doing? How y'all been? I haven't seen y'all in a while.
We haven't seen you either. You've been ghosting us.
Yeah, man. How can I put this? I can be honest. These comedy shows picked up and they've been keeping me busy, and I hooked up business wise with Sean.
Yes,
and I don't want to put the wrong idea out there, you know what I mean? So anyway, me and Sean got this podcast together, and this shit takes a lot of work. Sean does most of it.
Sweet.
But it's big. And then, as y'all know, I have a little miniature shitting machine that I just had. By that I mean my daughter. So I need to take care of that too, and it's been keeping me busy, man.
That's the second time I have heard that adorable nickname used this week, but the last time it was to refer to a schnauzer.
My daughter's not that expensive. It's a joke, guys. Relax. Sean was like, "No,
That's me biting off a joke about a market in Pakistan somewhere. That's all that was. Just
yeah, let's keep it in the U.S.
Never undersell, Freddy. Never undersell.
So yeah, I've been these shows have really taken off. I got to do one right before. Oh, I didn't tell y'all. I think I had this conversation with Sean, but I went out to my the one that pays the bills actually requires me to travel sometimes. But what I did was I also took the advantage on my downtime, and I performed out there at an open mic at the actual so I got to perform there, and it was nice. It was different. It was I loved it. It was yeah.
I have to ask, while you were there, did people comment on your accent?
Yeah, yes, and this is not a joke. But it happened more when we went to the. There was a shitload of people there, and then they're, "Hi, how you doing? You're not from here, are you?" And I was like, "No." "Are you from somewhere down south?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Alabama?" No. "Georgia?" No. And then I said Texas, right? And I was like, "I'm from Texas." "Oh, Houston?" No. "Dallas?" No. "San Antonio?" No. "Corpus?" No. "Where are you from?" "The Rio Grande Valley." "Where?" Yeah, I was like, so I literally had to, show them a map.
That recently happened in when I had this show last February in Dallas, and people were just wondering like, "Oh, are you from here? Like in the area, Texas?" Like, yeah, I've been from Texas, yeah. And they told me what place. They thought it was like they thought like I was like sort of not close to the border, but I was like
Yeah.
in the Corpus area somewhat, and I was like, no, I'm in the McAllen area, Rio Grande Valley, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
And they told me that. So let me get this straight. So you're kind of like 0.5 kilometer or very inches away from the border. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not from there. I'm just very like sort of away.
Yeah.
So I get that a lot with
Yeah.
people up north, and they just of all the questions, they just told me that. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind, but yeah, it's
Yeah, like a lot of I've noticed, man. I mean, I'm not gonna act like I've traveled the world because I haven't, but I've been to a lot of different places up north, out in the East Coast and the West Coast, and you'd be surprised how like the everyday shit to us, to them, it's like, what? I've had to explain to people in thorough detail what tamales are.
yeah.
So what, how do you eat that? That's food? Is it good? Oh, dude, it's delicious. You don't know the half of it.
I once made potato and egg tacos for my husband's family
Yeah.
for breakfast.
Right.
The most basic. I thought everybody ate potato and egg. So I start, and the Mexican me, I'm getting ready for Easter when it's like July. So I'm saving those coscorones. And so I'm cracking my eggs and saving my coscorones. And my mother-in-law looks at me like she's mortified.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Are you okay?" She goes, Are you gonna crumble those and put them on top of the eggs there?"
Yeah.
And I go, "What you think I am? I'm Mexican. I'm not from I don't know who does that."
That's funny. It's like when I was I mean the same thing with us. Like it's just I guess it's a culture shock because when I was living in LA, to us, well, I mean I'm real fucking Mexican, especially when it comes to food. You know what I mean? So when I was there in LA, I remember that they gave me breakfast, and I got eggs and hash browns. I was good up until that point. And then I remember the very first time they served me grits. I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And I was like, and then because it was my friend was black and whatnot, and then she was like, "Oh, they grits, man. They're really good." And I was like, "And what are grits?" I literally had to do the shameful move of like going to the table and googling and shit, and I was looking at pictures of. And I was like, that shit looks like mashed potatoes, yo. But if you put hot sauce on it, which I found out later you're not supposed to, but I put hot sauce on it anyway because we're Mexican. That's what we do. so I put hot sauce on it and it made it good. And then she looked at me and she's like, "Why are you putting hot sauce on your grits?" And I was like, "Oh, it's good. It's good. It's just a Mexican twist on it. Just relax. It's good."
Quick tip, Freddy. If you put a little cheddar cheese in it first, it'll hold the hot sauce better.
Oh, see, and that's a white guy telling me that shit. I knew Sean knew his shit.
No. See, you went to the West Coast to experience grits, man. I went to the Deep South. Like, those motherfuckers are like, "You ain't gonna put cheese in it?" And it's like, okay.
Yeah, man.
It's
So great. Have y'all ever had grits?
I think my first experience with grits, like most people from the Rio Grande Valley, happened at this place called the Cracker Barrel. Which
I'll say something. Those are not real grits.
and I'm sure like a lot of people up north think that Taco Bell
Is Mexican
is Mexican
food.
food.
right.
Yeah.
A lot of
Definitely.
people are under the impression that Cracker Barrel is authentic Southern cuisine.
Yeah.
Well, the same way that McDonald's kind of resembles a hamburger, there are some spots in like when you get like farther into the Southwest and like towards the West Coast where like the frying is more, you get like a chimichanga or something like that as opposed to like a straight up burrito. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of difference on that. I can buy that Taco Bell might be a bastard. I know from what I understand, they stole their recipes from the restaurant next door. So I may be spreading fallacious rumors, but fuck them. They've given me bowel troubles on enough nights that I've still paid money into their product. You know what? That should be as much money as you spend on somebody's product. You should be able to talk that much shit.
Exactly.
It's like
I totally agree with that.
They send you a bill for like
Completely
25
agree.
cents. They're like, you went one fuck you over the line. I was like,
Yeah.
all right, fuck. But what I was gonna say was, yeah, there's that idea that like Taco Bell would cover like anywhere south of San Antonio is just fucking ridiculous. I was gonna say, as far as the RGV, the weird thing is like people on the East Coast, you can kind of explain regionally where we're at. It's like southern tip of Texas. It's, Brownsville, Texas. And they're like, really? They would call it Brownsville? It's like, no, it's named after a family. Chill out. But
people,
what I was going to say was, man, when you start going up the west side of Texas, the Rio Grande runs all the way through there. So like you say, Rio Grande Valley and like where they think you're talking about gets farther and farther north until you get into like fucking New Mexico. And they're like, Colorado? You're from Colorado? Like, no, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird little fucking place. Like it's even within Texas, like people kind of discount us. You know what I mean? You may get that like, oh, I got family or friends from down there. Or, oh, I heard not to go down there, which is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I remember and the worst part is having to explain when I went to Puerto Rico, having to explain to Puerto Ricans like where I'm from. And this was the only thing that I could make them understand. Because I told them the same thing I told y'all right now. I told them the exact same thing, and they still could not, like they couldn't put a finger on it, right? And then so at the end, I was like, "Look, I'm Mexican," and then that's when they were like, "Oh, eres mexicano too," and I was like, "Yes, I'm Mexican." And then you have like the white Puerto Rican women that like are Puerto Rican but they speak English, and he's like, "Oh, Mexicano, muy cute, very cute." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." It's the only time my race has ever worked in my benefit, damn it. So, yeah. The only other ones that asked me for my race is immigration, and that was not a good experience. So yeah, back to what I was telling y'all.
Let's tie this into something. Like, how many y'all had a chance to go on the? I know you said you haven't done any recordings, but Analyssa, but you have you had a chance to go out and play do some road gigs?
I started out playing here locally in McAllen, moved up to New York, and my dream was always to play in Woodstock. Wow. And I did get to do that. I did get to play at this place called the Walk and Roll, little Chinese restaurant that hosted open mics. That was awesome. Did maybe 1 or 2 open mics in Albany. Very, very different from here in the Valley. I'm kind of partial to open mics here, but that's about as far as my range has been on the road.
Okay.
And to kind of tie off to what he asked, just because I ask this to everybody that comes on, and for the ones that are listening, how did you first get started, like in music, and that you were like, I really want to do this shit because it makes me happy?
I was in middle school. I was 6th grade. Knew this group of chicks, and we were like, we're gonna start an angry punk band, and we're gonna be so awesome. And I was like, let's do this. I went to Melhart's. I got a guitar. I got an amplifier. I came to school. I said, I'm ready to rock. And I was the only one who actually took it seriously.
That was awesome.
Oh, shout out to that one motherfucker in the group.
Yes. Definitely.
Okay.
So I played a lot of death metal when I first got started. I was actually in a band called Soul Fear. And of all the guys in the group, I was the only girl. I had the shortest hair. I had the short little bob haircut. They all had really long hair. My brother was the drummer. After that, my brother and I had a solo thing, a little group thing going on. And now I'm just doing acoustic stuff.
So what's the is there any conceivable path from the death metal to the acoustic stuff, or was it just like you wake up one day and just like fuck it, like oh shit, what's her name? You did the Girls Just Want to Have Fun. She just redid all of her old songs as easy listening acoustic guitar. It's not a bad album, but she's a great She's a good musician. Anyway,
I have to
question.
check that out now. I guess a lot of people say, well, you know, I grew up and I outgrew my death metal phase. I don't think I ever outgrew it. That's still very much a part of me. It's still very much ingrained in me. But when I realized what my sound was as a solo musician, as a songwriter, this was just what ended up coming out of me. And it was the most natural thing. And I was just like, I'm going to stop fighting this. I'm not going to be, you know, like the lead singer of this crazy, gut-wrenching death metal band forever. I'm going to destroy my vocal cords. So I just did what came naturally. And it was acoustic music.
Well put. Well put. I think that's that. If you clipped out the bits referring to music and just kind of put that up against anybody's like ambition creatively, like that would be a fair way to kind of balance your trajectory. Just go, that's what I'm going to aim for. I'm just going to like go, okay, what do I feel like playing? We've been talking about this actually, kind of an ongoing conversation about like being kind of mindful of word usage, you know, so you're actually saying specifically what it is you want to say, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine musically that's even kind of more difficult because you're kind of fighting off all the influences. We've kind of talked about that as well. You can't really, unless you're trying to aim for a specific sound, you don't really want to try to internalize other people's creative stuff. You know, you can listen to it, you can enjoy it, but you're not going to sit down and kind of think about it. Though every once in a while, somebody else plays a song and you just go, fuck, that you're playing my song. Like, not like I wrote that song, but like I would have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, and what I was gonna say was where like you got into that, you went through this like punk rock death metal band and everything, and now that how long you been doing it? How long you been playing guitar and recording music?
Oh man, I'm gonna sound like a dinosaur. I've been playing guitar since I was 12.
I know they have the pictures, Freddy, but he never actually rode the Raptor.
I was about to say, I was like, which one did you ride? Like in the back, in the
Triceratops all the way. I've been playing about 15-ish years. And I always thought, you know, when I was first starting out, it was like, man, after like 2 years of playing, I'm going to be like Zach Wilde status. Or man, after like 4 years of playing, I'm going to be like Willie Adler status. I am still very much in the basic 4-chord zone, but I make it work.
That's all that matters. The reason I asked that is because I was going to ask you, since you've been playing for that long, where is it that you want to go with this? Like do you see it as a career, or is this just like a hobby for you? And before you answer, just want to let you know there's no wrong answer. I mean, whatever. If it's
I'm not going to fail this exam. You're not going to.
You're definitely not.
Lower my pay grade because of this. I think in the long term, the whole goal of this is to make people feel good when they listen to it. And if only one person feels good from listening to my music, well, then I think I would be happy with that. If I happen to make a little cash on the side from it, hey, that'd be really cool.
I think that's nicely covered under the everybody should feel good. It's like, y'all should feel good. I should feel good.
You know, we all feel good. My cat feels good on this little TP that I got him with that cash I made from that song.
Yeah, there you go.
He likes the wet food now. Yeah, okay.
And since I got you both in here, it's something that I've really been wanting to ask you because y'all know each other and y'all have heard each other play. Sean, this is why we need to get out more live because I know you haven't heard them. But I wanted to ask you, I've heard your style of music, and I would like for Damien, before you answer, to talk a little bit more about your style of music. You've heard his music. He's heard yours. I see it. But do y'all maybe see any type of collaboration between the two in the future?
As for
now that you know she can pull off death metal,
Yeah, to be honest with you, like the whole death metal part, like before City of Dawn and before the ambient came around to my mind, I wanted to do this very extreme metal. It's like black metal style, like Mayhem, Burzum, but more into the post rock, they call it post black metal. It has like very melodic dynamics into it, and I've heard a lot about black metal and post black metal bands, and I wanted to do something like after I picked up my dad's guitar, like since 6 7 years. I know he was my number one inspiration to pick it up to have myself pick up an instrument and play, because he used to be in a death metal band like back in 1990s, and it's well known here for Texas death metal. And I've seen him play. I've heard him. He recorded one song of this Texas death metal band album, and I really love the grooviness, the heaviness. I mean, I really loved it, and I want to do something, follow his steps and stuff like that. So I used to be real a metal listener since I was a baby, since my dad introduced me to this metal genre. So all these years was just me liking every type of metal, death metal, black metal, mostly black metal. But then when it reached to my teenage year, when I'm like 14, 15, that's where I get more like exposure for the black metal type. So I know when I picked up the guitar and I was doing some black metal chords, post black metal, all that stuff, before I head to the ambient thing. So yeah, this is mostly a big transition for me for post black metal or the black metal genre to the ambient, because I know before City of Dawn, I wanted to create some of that project. But thing is, I think I put out one album, but I didn't release it at all because I have no confidence, I would say, confidence into that album. And I just feel it's not me, writing that song or music. It's not, even though it captures the emotions, but it's not me. It's not the true self of art that I wanted to express.
Yeah.
So I noticed like the whole ambient genre. One of my friends sent me a link to this ambient project called Hammock. One of my musical heroes project that influenced me, inspired me to go to the ambient direction. And I was listening to this particular song from that project, and it just moved me. It moved me like many places, and I truly wanted to create this sort of sound. And it's like I found my true art expression wise. So I know I've been wanting to do this sort of interesting, very abstract art, that kind of reflects my pain and my emotions and stuff like that. So yeah, the whole ambient genre is like a whole thing to me. So yeah.
I like the way you explained that, and you put that out there, in which you kind of read my mind to the next point that I was gonna point out to you. As far as your music, and I know we've had this conversation off air and everything.
Like, yeah.
So if it's cool with you to talk about it on air, can you tell us a little bit about how because you've told me in the past that you've suffered from depression, and
Yeah.
so can you explain a little bit about how your art and your music has helped you, to kind of steer away from that and lift you up for us and the people that are listening?
Right. Yes. Yeah, man. I know I've been during those times where like what I mentioned about the post black metal. I was like before the ambient genre I want to create. I was going to a lot of stuff in school recently, where a lot of bullying, a lot of stuff, and the loneliness and not much social connection, because even though I'm like surrounded by the people, like of course in the valley or anywhere else, it just, I want to talk to them. I want to socialize, be part of the society, but I can't. I mean, I don't know how to. I don't know, really, not sure what to go what to continue that route, because I know I have been diagnosed with autism, Asperger's syndrome. It's a very high functioning autism. And for those who are not, for those who are listening, yeah, I'm pretty sure for those people who have known their kids or even their loved one who suffer, who not suffer, but battling with those, with the anxieties along with the autism, but anxiety, depression, and mostly like, just,
Holy
battling.
fuck, dude! You didn't tell me that part. That
Well,
is
I just
new
wanted to
me.
open up because it's
No,
mostly, yeah.
and I appreciate that, but because I want to tell our listeners, this is why I asked them those questions, because I think that this is beneficial to all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tie it around to all of us right now, how this interjects with our different types of art forms.
Right.
But because I know people, and I actually have a younger cousin that has not been fully medically diagnosed with Asperger's,
Yes.
but I'm sure that's what he has. So like you explaining that and you saying that it's highly functional, I just the reason that I point you out, and because you talked about it, is that because Damien, to the people that don't know him, he's very talented. Like in his music, he knows how to interject his feelings and his feelings and the anxiety and depression that he goes through. You can feel it in his music, and that's why I wanted you to.
I was going for that route, just to give it a little backstory of like the social connection and the loneliness. I mean, I don't mind the loneliness and embracing the solitude. This is where majority of all the recordings of the ambient comes from that. But before, during those exploration of ambient music, it's it's a very personal genre for me, I would say. It's what I wanted to do for not just for playing for jams, for black metal or writing songs, but having that ambient music for exploration and for the quietness, the stillness, and finding the peace within, even though like there's a lot of like situation out there, not just politically, but like out there, like with anxiety problems and depression as well. So that way, this is where I come in, and this ambient genre type of music, it's really personal for me as well. So
yeah.
Well, let me ask a quick question, and this is going to be completely, not completely ignorant. It's coming from a place of curiosity, so there's something there. But like I was never, I guess I've never taken the time really to look down the distinction as far as where Asperger fits into the autistic spectrum.
Right.
So I'm not, but I have been aware of a few people who are on the autistic spectrum and have been at certain points kind of triggered into anxiety by
sounding, yes,
music, even just kind of and certain types of music as well. Is there this kind of ties into another question I was going to ask you about the post black metal thing, but where does the ambient music kind of I don't know, stimulate you without, or you're saying it's even kind of helping you to cope with any anxiety that you're dealing. How does that play into, say, your daily routine?
For music wise, I would say.
Yeah, like what draws you back to it on the continual basis, and then even inspires you creatively about the genre and the. Because I mean, I like to liken people who are kind of drawn to genres as like you find that tool that just kind of fits in your hand. It's like, I can do so much with this.
Right.
It's like, what is that about the ambient music?
With this ambient genre, then right after I discovered that ambient, I just don't want to write post black metal anymore, because it's not my true self, I would say, not my expressive mode. And I just wanted to do something where it's totally out there, out of this earth, and totally in a very interesting form of sound. It's with this ambient genre that I explored, or recently. It's a very, for those coping skills I have dealt with, the ambient sort of way. It's sort of like it's telling you to like we're in the grounding level, the quietness, the stillness, focusing on the stillness and all that, and the silence. I know out there it's like there's a lot of noises to take in, and even for sensory, not just autism, but people with anxiety or even like sensory problems with hearing and all that. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of movements that's been surrounding us, and it takes a lot to take in. And with this ambient thing where I will listen to or even make, it's like this spacious of exploration, this spacious of thinking, the deep space of listening that captures the emotion with this listener's emotions, or basically anything really. So yeah.
Okay, this kind of ties back to the question I had about the post black metal.
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding, at least, of most postmodern art is more about what you leave out of the piece as opposed to what you're putting into it. I mean, if anything, to maybe highlight what you have chosen to put into it, right? The whole deconstructive aspect of like, just because I have this doesn't mean I have to have that.
Yeah.
We're going to select what it is we're putting in this and where it is we want the attention to go.
Right.
So is that, maybe if I'm understanding you correctly, with your description of that, is it the room between the aspects of the sound? So you were playing us a little bit of your piece earlier, and it was melodic. Would that be a fair word?
Very melodic, yes.
Yeah, you're kind of hearing it from the next room. It might be the way I'd describe it.
Yeah,
which is there's space between you and what's kind of happening. Is that a fair description of what maybe you were trying to describe?
Yeah, I would say that mostly a deep space. I know this particular genre. I know in today's world they use it for meditation. They use it for spa. I mean, I'm truly fine with that, with this ambient genre, that it's used for spa and meditative. But my point of writing, my point for this ambient in my form, I would say it's basically, I know people don't really understand the whole genre of ambient music and this whole perspective of the ambient. They're very confused, even though I perform open mics at Lunas and Uberia and basically around the valley. And I'm trying, I've been really writing music like almost throughout the whole years, and bringing it live is kind of like a little bit difficult, because you're just like, man, I just wonder how is people gonna how are they gonna react to this ambient sound. So
and that's awesome, Sean. Those are great questions. I think you covered great points there to give us a broader aspect of your music and how you deal with it, and how you interject your feelings into it. Going off to what you're saying about how people will react to your art, it's like what I've told Sean before. We're comedians, y'all are musicians, but in a way, our art form comes all the way back around, and it's together, because it's what I wanted to tell you.
Right.
Our art is a way of it's a self-expression.
Right.
So whatever it is that you feel is what you put into your art.
Right.
So what I would tell you, and I'm not a musician, I'm a comedian, but don't ever let that I'm not saying it does, but I'm just saying, like, don't ever let it discourage you, or don't ever think, oh, if I write this piece, how will they receive it? Just
that was like before, when I began doing Luna's open mic. It was like last year. So I was having a mentality where, I was having anxiety right in that spot, because like I know people was gonna enjoy it, what's not, but the reaction was like, wow. In the valley, there's not what I'm aware of, but there's none of ambient artists here. Very experimental, because it's very, very rare to have. It's very rare here that there's experimental artists here, like doing all this sort of sound. So when I perform over there at Luna's the first time, no, many people were expecting like I'm gonna play something loud or gonna play something like very. They don't know what to expect. So when I started playing, people were just like giving like. There's some people that like I don't know what type of genre is this, but I loved it and stuff like that. I don't know what. That's what they told me. And then there's others where like they give me this confused look, like how do you do this? Like even though I'm a musician myself and play guitar, but the pedals you make and not the pedals you make, but like the sounds and the pedals and the settings. How do you do that? And then how do you do this? You know. And that's where there were like not confused, but majority of very curious. They're very curious on what ambient and what is ambient and how do you do this type of sound, you know? Because here in the Valley there's no experimental music like that. So
exactly.
I know I asked you this earlier, but if you've had a little bit of time to think on it, you know what I mean, you've kind of been throwing us descriptors out here.
Right.
If you were trying to describe something ambient to someone in, let's say, 2-3 sentences, how would you attempt to do that?
It's much more of a big movement. I would say it's very, very interesting. I got this Brian Eno quotes. I would say it's I don't know what it says here. It has to be ignorable as interesting, you know, sort of that way.
Ignorable and interesting.
As
what you
interesting,
said, right?
yes. It's a Brian Eno quote. He's one of those ambient pioneers. He's from, I believe, in England, if I'm correct. So, yeah, I think that's what's the best fitable for ambient. It's very experimental, slow movement type of music.
Would you say almost intentionally, you're able to ignore it?
Either way. I mean, either listeners will like ignore the whole ambient. Like, for example, when you're in the elevator music, right? Yeah. This jazz elevator music, it's like the same thing as an ambient. Like people ignore it.
So it's a feeling. It's a feeling that's there. That a lot of people don't pay attention to it, but they know it's there.
They know it's there.
I got you.
Yes, they know it's there.
I understand. Okay. I got you.
So it's not really defining necessarily a style, but a philosophy of genre. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I would say that.
I mean, is there anything specifically that's typically incorporated into it? I mean, I know you mentioned Muzak a second ago, and that's interesting that you would kind of like. Do you think that's something that's maybe part of the lineage of it coming about? Just that say like lounge music, which is kind of where Muzak kind of
lounge.
You want to take something that is the big boisterous piece of musical creation and then kind of tempo it down. So You can stand having somebody play it 3 feet away from you.
Yeah, basically. Okay. I know it's like lounge music or even spa. So like, I mean, to be honest with you, like with spa music and meditation, like I don't mind like they play like my music that's played there, but I mean I'm not going against it, but like, you know, what other listeners or people out there are not very 100%, not 100%, but like very know about this ambient and the understatement of the ambient is where like those musicians like myself and other ambient musicians out there, they create sounds. I would say it's not just used for spa or background. They actually, it's like like what Freddy says, type of form of art, you know, expressive art.
Yeah. Okay. And I got a funny story about that shit because going back to what you're saying, how you set up and you have your pedals and everything when you set up and you play your music live. I remember the first time I saw Damien play live, we were at the same open mic at Luna's Coffee House, and I was getting ready for my set. And he was coming. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything, whatever. and he was coming up and he was gonna set up, right, and he took out his amplifiers and he got his guitar. So I got up. I'm not gonna lie, I was being an asshole about it. I was like, I got up. I was like, I'm gonna go outside real quick, go over my material, and I'm gonna come back when it was my set. When I was walking out, he was getting his amplifiers and he was getting the guitar, and I was still walking out. But then, when you busted out the foot pedals and the foot mixer and shit, and he was plugging it in, and he started pressing, I was like, oh no, wait! I went back. I was like, no, I'm gonna watch this shit right here. I ain't never seen this before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna watch. You know, and then
Right.
as soon as he started playing. Like I told you off air, man. As soon as he started playing, I gotta make a disclaimer before I continue. If you don't do drugs, I don't condone you doing drugs. Kids don't do drugs; they're bad for you. But if you do drugs, and if you've ever been on an acid trip and you listen to this music, yeah, you'll definitely be gone for days. And sometimes it can be a good thing, and yeah, you'll forget that you have all kinds of stresses, and
It's a good feeling.
You know, I think that's such an interesting observation to make, that for you, ambient music or Damien's music in particular is like an acid trip, because I too have suffered from anxiety and crippling anxiety at points in my life. And when I heard your music the first time there at Luna Coffee House, free promo, I had this feeling, going back to how you described it, as this abstract art form. And so when something is abstract, it's open for interpretation. And when I listened to your music, not only was it this very calm, relaxing feeling, but it was almost as if your music understood my emotions, which is just like this very hard to describe thing, this very hard to describe experience. And that's really what drew me toward your art. And it was like, wow, so for somebody it can be, wow, this is trippy, it's like an acid trip.
yeah.
And somebody else it can be like, wow, like this person understands me, or this art understands me.
Right.
Which takes it to a whole other level, because the art is now conscious.
Yeah. As for like you said, like this ambient music genre, it's very a free interpret, genre. It's not very strictly like, okay, it's used for spa or it's used for relaxation, It's mostly like, I mean, it's unlimited. You can use it for, like you said, like acid trip. You can use it for.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, we don't condone the use of drugs. These are just references.
But just to
drugs
tag
are
along,
bad.
Freddie's caution here.
Yeah.
Kids, just know what drugs you're doing. Important.
The kids, this is Sean, and he's speaking for himself. So
I think that's probably a very responsible way to go through life. Don't just swallow the pills in the bottle, kid. Know what the hell's on the label.
Again, this is Sean speaking.
Sean speaking.
But we fucking with y'all. But the point, the point that I was trying to make, which y'all made very good points, and it brings me back to you, Analyssa. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you also went through like anxiety and stuff like that. But as far, because I've heard your music as well, and your music, your style of music is more open and in the face. Like, what I mean by that is you can literally hear the emotion that you had when you wrote that song. Let's see, with Damien, you have to sit back and kind of let it marinate. And then after a while, that's what I said, it's like an acid trip. Because I don't know if y'all ever been on acid. I haven't, but they said that.
No, I've never been. Never my entire life.
So basically, it takes a while to marinate. I'm talking about Damien's music. Right. And then all of a sudden, it hits you, and you're like, oh, shit. Like, you go on this trip that it makes you feel a different kind of way that you didn't feel. For me, it was necessarily good. It was relaxing. I felt good, and it gave me this feeling. With you, Analyssa, it's more of a in the face. I'm mad, angry, sad. In this verse, this is what I feel, and it's there. my question to you and what I wanted to know was, you dealt with your anxiety. How do you think, how do you channel your anxiety into your music,
So,
and how does it help you?
it is extremely, extremely therapeutic. There have been times where I'm having a panic attack. I'm in the middle of this panic attack. I'm wanting to rip my hair out. I'm feeling these weird tingling sensations in my body. It's almost as if my body has been put on some mode that I cannot get out of. And I almost feel trapped inside my brain, and like my body is doing things that I cannot stop, that are out of my control. And it's very, very scary.
Yeah.
And so when I put my fingers on the strings of a guitar, and when I open up my voice to sing, all of a sudden it's like I'm in control again. And so what I have experienced with my anxiety is that you can feel like no one understands you, because anxiety for everybody is different. I mean, you can be sitting across from somebody who also suffers from anxiety, but the way it manifests in them is very different from how it manifests in you.
Okay.
And so for me, music is this way to kind of let people know how I feel inside of me, and let other people know, if you feel this way, you're not alone. It's almost like this window to look inside my soul. So music for me is this very honest, very, like Freddy said, in your face kind of approach.
Okay, I have a question for the both of you. Do you find that the willingly chosen anxiety of creative work, which I really do think you can break down creative work in that way, where I must get this done, and nobody's telling you, I mean, unless you've signed a contract, which is always a pain in the ass, but for the most part, nobody's telling you you must get this done, but you're telling yourself. It's like, I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, and then I do creative shit. Like, do you find that willingly chosen creative work does anything to alleviate the unwilling anxiety? Does the body go, all right, you've done your penance, and kind of, do you find some solace in that? Sanctuary, perhaps, from the anxiety that may just be free flowing?
Great question, sir.
That is a great
Yeah,
question.
it is.
And for me, I wouldn't say it's so much like a light at the end of the tunnel, like I'm going through this and I know I can relieve it with this. It's more just like this is the burden that I have to bear. My anxiety is the burden that I have to bear. And music is this tool that I was, I guess, blessed with, so that I could let other people know that they're not alone in this, or that they're not the only ones who've been cheated on by their ex-boyfriends.
I've never been cheated on by a boyfriend, because I've never had one. So.
So you could just be walking around one day and like, oh shit, that's what she was talking about.
Exactly, but it hasn't happened yet.
Keyword yet.
That's why we read history, Freddy.
This is why I asked both of you those particular questions, and this is how I bring this back around. And this is also why I made all these references to drugs. Because to the people listening out there, we all deal with this shit. You've dealt with depression. You've dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with depression. I can only openly speak about it. I'm dealing with depression as we speak now. The reason as to why I say that is because, as far as the drug references, I really do want to let people know out there that are listening that no matter what you're going through and what you experience or what you feel, drugs are not always the way or the first choice that you wanna go to. going back to a point that Damien made,
Because-
music or your
Yeah.
art form, whether it's music, poetry, acoustic, ambient, or comedy, some type of art form helps you get through those anxiety feelings, whether you have uh, Asperger's syndrome, whether you deal with anxiety, depression, whether you have cerebral palsy, whether you have you're in a wheelchair, whatever the case may be. But if you still have some type of body movement, some type of mind power, you are able to channel your feelings and your whatever you have into an art form. And I'm not saying do it for the money, but do it for the relief of your soul, and whatever makes you feel that you free it. The reason as to why I also talk openly about the depression I'm going through is because a lot of people don't know. I give me a second.
Word it properly. Go ahead.
I know what I want to say, but I recently, very recently, I lost my mother, and it was the hardest thing that I've ever like had to deal with sober. And people that know me well, they know that I've been clean and sober for 7.5 years. So I didn't have that so-called crutch to land on or to use when as I was going through this. So, and it was very recent, and that's why I mentioned earlier, it's something that I'm still going through and I'm still experiencing, and it's still very difficult. But I just want to, I don't want to make this about me and how I'm affected. The reason as to why I bring this out here is because I want to bring the main point of we use these art forms and these outlets per se, whether it be comedy or whether it be music, to channel this energy that helps us get through that to the light at the end of the tunnel, as Analyssa was saying. And which brings me back to an important point that I wanted to make with you, Damien.
Right.
I don't know if that's where you were going or that's what you were going to explain, but if you ever feel that there is a piece of music or a piece of material that I was like, I don't know how they're going to experience it, I don't know how they're going to take it. My best advice to you is don't let the judgment of other people stop you from putting out your genius, because you don't know if that piece of material that you were going to put out, it was going to help somebody else.
Right.
It's like when it's like when I do my comedy. Me and Sean have talked about this before. I've gotten backlash over jokes that I've said and whatnot. But the reason that I continue to do it is because as long as I can make that one person smile or that one person literally laugh, I done done my job. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I would love to make all 100 people laugh, but if I didn't, and if some felt some way, that's fine. But as long as I can get that one or two people to feel that certain way, because at the end of the day, I think what we get at is that we're all entertainers.
Right.
And it helps us in turn to channel our inner feelings in a safe and in a productive manner, if we could say.
And for what Analyssa said and what about the recovery, I know I have made an album that specifically talks about that. It's titled Recovery. There's a series, Recovery Part 1 and Recovery Part 2. Recovery Part 1, it's 3 tracks. I released it like 2015. And there's another album, is Recovery Part 2. I released that like last year. And as far as that album goes and the whole message that I want to convey, there's been a lot, like, as I released that album through Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, I just received like a tons of feedbacks and messages about, like they haven't been open up to anyone. They just open up to me because like with their autism, they're like their secret weaknesses that they didn't tell no one about, and they told me, hey, I have autism myself, or anxiety, or PTSD, or depression. Like this message, that the message you're trying to convey to the sounds, I mean, it's like you're letting my heart open. You're letting my heart open and just say we're not alone to this. We can cope with this together, or we can able to, how you say this.
We
Yeah,
can
basically.
we can help each other.
Yes, yeah.
Without being in close quarters.
Right.
That's what I love about music, and because as everybody knows, even before I was a comedian or whatever the case may be, music was always my first love. Music was my go to for everything. So I always saw music as the connection, whether it be live in an audience or through a speaker, the connection to that artist, that I was like, hey, that person feels like me too.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped me, and that helped me get to where I was to where I needed to go, or the way that I needed to feel,
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that, and it's going back to y'all's music, when you showed me actually personally some of your lyrics. And I've written lyrics before. I've written poetry. It's kind of the same thing without the rhythm. I'm sorry, without the melody. But like, even as far as writing lyrics, when you write these lyrics, when we write a joke, that's why the most successful type of music, and the most artistic type of material, comedy, it comes. I was actually talking to John Thomas, another comic, about this. Is like, as long as your material is real, and what you're relating and talking about is real.
Correct.
I told John, I guarantee you, because his argument was like, it's because sometimes what's in my real life is not funny, and I'm
Right.
going for that laugh. But what the advice that I gave him was, bro, I guarantee you that as long as whatever you write down is real, the audience will appreciate 100 times realness over something that's not real.
Well, okay, man. We've kind of covered this from a couple angles in a few conversations, man. And I think somebody might get the wrong impression from that if they're not like. I was actually kind of thinking about this in terms of the some of the postmodern art and the way deconstruction can be used to basically create a mood. You're setting certain art has to be consumed in a certain way. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I think most people would assume that at home with a pair of headphones would be their preferred way of listening to music. But then you get the purists that go like, nah, man, if you're not in the smoky bar listening to it, 3 feet away from the subwoofer as it bangs onto, the last bit of hearing you have left, you're not doing it right.
Right.
But what I was going to say was with the whole, it has to be true. I think there's another level to that. Or at least I've been working under the assumption there's another level to that, because there are certain things that you can't find the funny in them at the moment. Now, granted, maybe a couple months down the line, you think about it again, and you're emotionally removed from it. You know what I mean? You're done dealing with the trauma of the moment, and now you can look back and go, oh shit, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You may not have even laughed at the time, but like inside, there's at least there's the joke writer in your head going like, I'm gonna jot this down. But what I was getting at was, I think the next level to that is just because you are experiencing something in the moment, like, doesn't mean that has to be what you're talking about. Like, as long as you're being honest about what's ringing true with you. Like, I think a lot of people take that assumption like, oh, I have to take my direct experiences in life and turn that into material. And it's like, no. Those direct experiences in life, and again, this is me working from some half-baked theory that I've just been kind of cobbling together in my spare time. But those experiences in life are vibrating with the different parts of your personality and the way your mind is perceiving the world. So like if something, bing, hits the bell, you go, okay, I know that bell is there. So like where else have I felt that before? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, family members in the hospital dying from who knows what. That maybe not quite so funny in the moment, maybe you talk about how the nurses keep mopping the floor for 6 hours at a time afterwards, or how cold it is in there. Fine, I did a whole bit about having to spend time with some family members, but afterwards, you know what I mean, I needed a little bit of step away from it. But in the moment, you know what I mean, there's 1,000 moments in your life that kind of ring true to all these things. Like I think maybe there is I think creatively you do always want to aim big. You want to go for the biggest target you can hit, but it's the biggest target that you think you can hit. You know what I mean? Like if you're being honest with yourself, like it's not like I'm going to write the 1 million selling album tomorrow. It's like, no. I'm going to put out a good piece of music that 18 months from now, people are still going to be hitting me back and telling me that there was something there that resonated with them. You know what I mean? That's I think where the honesty is. You know what I mean? No, so I'm not trying to say you're trying to over generalize. I'm just saying that can be taken by a lot of people at face value without putting in the homework of going.
And you're absolutely right, because that's exactly the other part that I told John. I was like, because he was like, but because his biggest argument was like, it's just not funny enough. And I told him exactly what you said. I said, but John, you can't expect to sit down, write something, and sometimes funny is not going to come right away. Sometimes you need to separate yourself from it, and you come back, and then you either come with something new, or you reread it and rewrite the same thing, and then funny comes. It's not something that's gonna just flow. Sometimes it does. Sometimes, just like when you write a song. Sometimes I don't know if you've experienced it, but maybe sometimes you can write a full song, the verse, the bridge, the chorus, your second and third verse in 30 minutes, and you got it. Sometimes I've known of people, because I used to write lyrics before too. Sometimes I've known of people that they take 6-7 months to write one song, and sometimes when they record it, I've heard them say, that's not exactly the way I wanted it. So
one of my songs took over 10 years to complete.
See,
I
and that's something, but it's in the experience. All I'm saying is it's in the experience of the art. And as far as what I was saying, like the realness was just, as long as it was something that either through sometimes your experience is funny enough, right? But maybe sometimes, like you said, your direct experience is not funny enough, but the experience that you learned made you think from a different perspective, right? And that's where the funny comes. That's what I was kind of.
Well, there was all right, what I was bringing in as far as the postmodern bit was, there was a statement, and I don't know where it was released, but Michael Che, who's on was on Saturday Night Live, he does the Weekend Report.
Yeah.
I don't know specifically what he was referencing, but he was kind of coming out hard against a lot of these anti-comedy shows that have been coming out, where it's like, this is the new face of comedy, and it's like, no, it's a deconstructive form of the art form, which can be beneficial to a lot of people. I mean, I think there's a lot of room to take things and break them down to the elements, again, as I said, those things that actually ring true with you and vibrate the little bits of your character and personality, and that's beautiful. But I think there may be, I don't know if this accurately describes the phenomenon that may be happening. I've seen it kind of happening similar in music off and on throughout my brief experience on this planet. But I think people who have never really jumped into, they haven't refined how they filter art. You know what I mean? So they can't accept that on one end there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's a little too weird for them, and on the other end there's going to be some stuff that's way too plain and doesn't even do anything for them. Where people who've never actually realized, they think, oh, art's not my thing. It's like, no. as a human being, there is something out there visually, orally, you know, food even can just touch something in you that's gonna, if not make you creatively curious, will at least make you curious about somebody else's creativity. You know, how many hours of cooking, you know, shows are there on the air? But where I was getting at was, I think people who haven't refined those tools of distinction for art, where they can't accept that, like, well, if it doesn't fit my definition, then it can't be art. They find that one thing that just works for them, and they go, "This is the truth." And you're like, well, no, it's your truth, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But and I think with comedy, that's every once in a while somebody comes along. You know, you got, like, we've accepted at this point, there alt comedy isn't necessarily alternative comedy, but it's comedy from that slightly different perspective, how you're taking it in. You know
exactly.
what I mean? We're not all sitting in, you know, some dark basement of a jazz club, you know, in a black room. That's not how this is. This is bright and fun and happy, and everybody's participating.
Yeah. And just like I spoke earlier, that I've gotten backlash for material that I've said and jokes that I've done, and I've literally had people tell me, you know, don't do that joke because it made me feel this way. On the same token, I think it's fair to say, for me to share this as well, in the short period of time that I've really been hitting comedy hard and doing these shows and whatnot, I've also had a couple of people that have actually come up to me and be like, "Hey man, I really like the fact that your type of comedy, where you come from, your perspective, your point of view, it really hits. It's a different angle, and I really appreciate it." And what I mean by that, it goes back to I've noticed some people that they've told me, this is not me talking, it's the people that I've met at shows. They tell me, I've never met a comedian. I'm pretty sure there is. I'm not saying there's not, but I've never met a comedian with your disability and that have that has those guts to go out there and basically like expose yourself. And that's why it gives me a different perspective on comedy, and it's very inspirational, is what I've heard before. And going back to what I was telling you, Damien, and also you, it's that's what I feel that we should all be in for. Whether it's a comic, whether it's an acoustic musician, whether it's an ambient musician, go for that. For, like you were saying, that where that bell's not there, where that angle has not been given yet. Like, go for that and tackle that, because if it hasn't been given, if it hasn't been given out yet from some perspective, you do want to be the first person there. I'll be honest, when I first started doing comedy, after I realized that it was something that I could do in my head, I'm not gonna lie, I fucking felt special, because I thought I was gonna be the first of me to do comedy. I found out later that there is other crippled motherfuckers that do comedy, but I was like, no offense to anybody out there, but I mean, but it's okay with it, because it gives you, my point again is, even if there's another 1, 2, or 3 or 4 ambient musicians, you're still part of that small group, and y'all can make that loud. That loud note. You Analyssa, talked about a band, and you started with this band at first, but then you transitioned to this acoustic music, and there is a few artists that play acoustic music and as a career, and solo artists as well, but they're very few. So the approach, or the benefit that I see there, is maybe you would be successful as a solo artist and just an acoustic artist, and because there is a genre and a space for that. So and again, I don't know if it's the biggest point for you all, but my biggest point, and the reason as to why I do comedy, aside from the fact that I like to make people laugh and make them feel good, is it's a way to going back to channeling my inner fear, my inner feelings, my inner anger, whatever the case may be, and if that is received with a laugh, then I'm okay. You know, I've always said, like Richard Pryor used to say, uh, my misery is their pleasure, but I'm okay with that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that was Richard, man. That was Richard at his best, and it's true, and that's where I tie it back into as well. You know, being real with your material when you come. I mean, Richard, you know, talked about lighting himself on fire because he was smoking a crack pipe. Like, people laughed and that shit was funny, but very few people know that that's what really happened. Like, this dude really lit himself on fire trying to light a crack pipe. You know what I mean?
And then you find out he was actually trying to kill himself.
Well, yeah,
so.
but
But he made it funny by insinuating he did it smoking bass. Yeah. Well, okay, let's take it to the real. What's the open question to both of you? What's the next step? You know, you're at where you're at. You're operating. You're doing your thing. Where's the next step in the, let's say, structure of it all? You know, what's the next level?
For both of you, as musicians, as like, where you trying to go with it?
Yeah. I mean, are we talking? You know, are you trying? You said you got some, Damien. You said you got some shows coming up in
right in Dallas and Austin.
Right on.
Right, yeah. Recently I've been invited to this gig that's gonna be coming in September. I think I have two shows up north. September 21st one is gonna be in Dallas. And I'll be sharing the stage with one of the ambient pioneer besides Brian Eno. Well, Brian Eno's not going to be there, but like there's another one. His name is Loraji. His project name, and he's one of those big top ambient artists. So yeah, I'm gonna be sharing I'll be sharing the same stage for him, you know, and
right on.
And then the other show I have is going to be in Austin. So the same thing. It's like a little tour. So yeah, one of my friends have the hookups for him, you know, him and I, you know, do like a little touring, and then some other ambient experimental project besides Loraji and me. There's going to be another one that's going to be with us. So in those 2 dates. So yeah, I'm very looking forward for that one.
You looking to make that a staple thing? You want to start going out and doing these small tours?
Yeah, some small tours. I'm very open with it. Like, either it can be from here in the valley where we do house shows. Yeah. Like house shows I did with Cetis.
Good. That's a good point that you touched, because I want you to explain a little bit more on that. And finish explaining what you were explaining too. But I also just keep in mind, and I'm gonna ask you the same 2 questions as well. But going to what you were saying. But don't forget what you said earlier.
Right.
How do I want to ask this? It also, because you just kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you could share the stage with anybody in your genre of music or art, that you would be like, this is the person that I would totally kill to share the stage with, who would it be?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot.
But there's got to be that one
artist. Oh,
yeah.
It's freaking hard.
I love asking that fucking question. It makes you fucking think.
No. On the spot.
Yeah.
Like on the spot with me. Like I did mention this before. Hammock is like those 2 guys from Nashville, Tennessee. One of my musical heroes. One of my musical, like, I recently well, not recently, but like it's one of those first ambient genre that got introduced by those exploration and all that. So I think Hammock, those 2 guys, I would rather I would share the stage with, if you're talking about like one top.
Yeah.
So I would say Hammock.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
and I'm gonna come back to you on the house shows, but and you, if there was that one performer, musician, whatever it is, whatever they are, who would it be that you would just kill to share the stage with?
So I got a chance to think about this while Damien was giving his answer, so I'm kind of cheating.
No, that's
how
what
you
I
do it.
want you to do.
No, please
I,
let
I
him
was
go
thinking the first person who came to my mind was Steven Wilson, but his stuff's a little bit more on the ambient side. Are you familiar with Steven Wilson? He was in a band called Porcupine Tree, but he also
I heard
has
Porcupine Tree.
he has another side project called Blackfield, and they do more acoustic-y stuff. And I was so into. I went through a whole Blackfield phase, and so I think that if I could share the stage with Blackfield, it would be like the moment in my life where I would just be like, I made it. I'm done now. I can die happy.
Yeah. That's the answer that I was. Did you see her expression? She was like, "I'm done. I made it. This is it."
Right.
Like that's the expression that I was going for.
Right.
On that. Sean, I ain't leaving your ass out. Who would you kill to share the stage with in our genre of? They have to be alive, bro. We can't dig anybody.
I was
out.
gonna say I'll kill somebody as a sacrifice to bring back Mitch Hedberg, but that's
Oh wow!
I
I
love
cannot
Mitch Hedberg.
believe you said Mitch Hedberg, bro. I can't. I was watching him today.
right on, man.
Steven
shit.
Wilson kind of looks like him.
Yes, he does. He does.
Oh, have you ever heard his material about the? I used to be in a band. We had to change the name to Acapella after we left the pawn shop. It's a beautiful joke writer, man.
One of my favorite of his, real quick, is the one that he says, I was asked to move from the fire escape, I think. I was asked to move because I was blocking the fire
Blocking
exit.
the fire exit at
The
the
fire
casino.
exit.
Yeah.
As if there was a real fire, I wasn't gonna run. That shit was funny.
If you are flammable, you are never blocking a fire exit.
So it would be Mitch. Oh no, he's not here.
Oh, that
Doesn't
disqualifies me? Okay.
Yeah, he has to be alive. We can't bring, because I would have said Richard, bro. Well, come on.
Okay. Off the top of my head, who would I love to perform with? Whose crowd would be complimentary, perhaps? Shit, I don't fucking know, man. Maybe. You know what? I bet Hannibal Buress has a badass crowd.
Yes, he does.
Like, I'd love to be on the show.
And I can relate to him. Not because of the race or anything, of course, but y'all need to lighten the fuck up. If not, y'all aren't gonna make it through the rest of the episode. No, I can relate to him because Hannibal.
That's where you got nervous, really?
Hannibal, he touches on a lot of touchy subjects, but he has the genius fucking way of like making you laugh right before you get offended. It's like, can I laugh at that? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I love Hannibal Buress. I mean, is it okay? And I do the same thing. Like, every time help me out, Sean, because I can't fucking pronounce the word. Every time that I do humor with the D word, depreciate,
Self-depreciating.
that shit.
Right.
Every time I do that, every time I do that type of those type of jokes, Damien, in case you don't know, it's basically humor where you make fun of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of the way that I am,
Right.
I actually almost every time before I start, I have to make a disclaimer. Because, let everyone know that it's okay.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, I always get the same fucking reaction. It's like they know it's funny. It's like, but can I laugh?
Yeah. Or
It's
should I
like,
feel sorry for him?
Yeah,
or should I, what I do? Like,
Yeah, exactly,
makes
man.
reaction,
So with Hannibal, he has that, man. He was and again, I'm gonna say some shit, y'all. untighten your panties. But I believe that Hannibal is the reason as into why Bill Cosby was convicted. I mean, I really honestly believe that if he wouldn't have said that joke on stage again, like, you know.
Well, here's the thing. He'd been doing that joke for, I want to say, 6 months before somebody recorded it at a show and put it out.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that speaks more to, like, just... we're so drawn to, like, the grassroots movement thing that if somebody gets up in an uproar on social media, it's like, shit, this must be genuine.
Yeah.
And occasionally you get to the point where it's like if the same person's, cries wolf enough times, or even if they don't cry wolf, even if they just cry enough times, like eventually you go like, oh, I know the flavor of what you're trying to say at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So-and-so said something about this, and you're like, oh, that was probably that was probably a sexual assault.
Yeah, exactly. And Damien, I'm pretty sure you're not too familiar with the situation. You're not, right?
What do you mean, like,
the joke. Well, basically, because
I'm
we're
not familiar with the situation. What are we talking about?
the Hannibal and Bill Cosby situation.
I think everybody. I think that's
I know
No.
Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure we all know that he went to jail and why he went to jail. But what I'm saying, what I was referring to, is that just simply that Hannibal had made a joke about him, like basically like day raping women, basically.
Oh, okay,
and because he redid that joke again on stage and somebody recorded it, it brought up every speculation and allegation about Bill Cosby, and a lot of people say, which myself included, say that that sparked it again, and I think that's why he was then
it's
tried
like
and
somewhat uncovering the truth. Like
yeah,
the truth,
again,
like
basically, because it's something that had already happened.
Yeah, man. Well, and to be fair, that comes about through the whole thing of like Bill Cosby has not been his own best friend when it comes to the comedy community. There's always that old Eddie Murphy joke. I don't know if you ever heard it, where Bill Cosby called him up after his first special, and he was like, "Oh, you're cussing too much. You're not. You're being disrespectful and all this shit." And he is telling this to Richard Pryor, and Pryor goes, "Did you get paid?" And he goes, "Yeah." Well, I say, tell Bill, what is it? Tell Bill to have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, man, it's Bill Cosby has not been. I think there are very few people. I think everybody comes up going like, "Oh, Bill Cosby was like one of the greats," but then like every comedian that's actually interacted with the man or had him reach out to him has been like, he's kind of a fucking dickbag.
Yeah. And going back to my Hannibal Buress reference as into how I relate to him is because when we had that conversation on our way to our open mic a couple of weeks ago,
right.
I have a joke that I've only performed twice, and the second time I performed it, I got backlash from, not backlash, but I got mixed reactions from the crowd, and it was a small crowd. And all I said, I mean, I'm not gonna go through the whole bit, but basically the gist of it was where when we were in high school and you're trying to get with a girl and they don't pay attention to me because I have to go through and explain and everything, and this is just to go on a date. And that was one of my punchlines. I was like, I just have to make sure they stick around long enough to finish the date. And I said, but if I ever want to get laid, I damn near have to pull a Bill Cosby on them. And I damn near have to pull a Bill Cosby on them. And yeah, I got like and I had to kind of break and be like, oh, fuck y'all, that's funny to me. Y'all don't have to laugh, but I ain't raped nobody, damn it. So, but yeah, I
wasn't even low hanging fruit. It was laying on the ground unconscious.
Yeah, so. But yeah, I got backlash for that. That's another thing that I've noticed down here in the valley. People are so fucking sensitive. You can't say shit. You can't. I got backlash because I did a retarded joke, and it's hard. It's difficult.
I think that it comes from our culture, or the traditions that are ingrained in our culture. Where if you're suffering through something or there's something going on in your life, you don't share it. You don't talk about it. There's a lot of things that are very taboo, especially in the family. Like, I was 18 years old and I was not allowed to tell my grandma that I had a boyfriend. You know, it was like, oh, he's just her friend, her special friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, well, where did I take him out of the special ed class? Like, no, it's
Yeah,
not like
yeah,
that.
exactly,
And so there have been times where my mom has told me, you're not really going to sing about that. You're not going to sing that song. Like, you're telling people too much. You're being too honest.
But I feel that that's what helps us relate and help other people that do listen to us and stuff like that. And I feel that if you don't do it, you're being the asshole for not doing it.
Absolutely.
Because maybe you could have helped that. For the people listening, I just do want to say, if you've ever been sexually abused, if you've ever been in that type of situation, my deepest feelings to you. I hope that it doesn't happen to you again. I don't condone it. But people, these are just fucking laughs. You need to relax about it. It's not something that like I said, that I condone. Just like I told that lady,
Right.
it's not something that I glorify or anything. It's just my experience, and it's what I go through, and that's why I can't change it. I feel, and I'm pretty sure y'all feel as musicians the same thing. When people tell you not to do something, or not to sing about something, or not to say something, they're in a way, it's kind of like them telling you, be you, but please be less of you. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I can't. I just like I told.
It's
that
very
lady.
hard, you know.
It's hard, and I
hard,
can't.
Yeah. I can't just be like, oh, I can't just be like this person, like you know.
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, you were like, I can't.
I can't. Like the thing is that I like here in the valley is like, it's like, I'm gonna put this in a musician, like, but I don't want not disrespect or not against it, but people like do covers, you know, cover songs, you know. I mean, I'm not going against it. I mean, it's, you know, but like, there's always like musicians like they form a group or a band, right? And then they go out there to perform. But usually all they do is just covers. But covers in the sense like they play Guns N' Roses, like Sweet Child of Mine every damn time. You just like can you cover another song, like another song that we haven't heard of, or your original statement, like your original writings and all that.
No,
I mean,
and at least
like,
y'all as me, this is what I hate about that. At least y'all as musicians, y'all can get away with that.
Well,
Sean, what happens if we cover somebody else's jokes? You know what I'm saying?
I was just thinking about this, and all right, to be honest, if somebody came up
hashtag fuck Amy Schumer. Anyway,
it's an ongoing joke. Don't worry about it. I saw Analyssa had a question there, like, huh? Like, just we don't have personal beef. It's just a running joke. Where I was gonna go was. It's like, what are you dragging me into? That woman's got publicity. What I was going to say was, if somebody comes to an open mic and says, and I know this is true with musicians, it's like, hey, this is my first time actually playing in public. Like, I'm going to play. You're almost saying, like, I mean, all right, first of all, I wouldn't expect somebody to get up there and go, hey, I'm going to do somebody else's jokes if it was their first time in an open mic. But if they got up, but if they got up there and they started doing somebody else's material, but they were doing it well, you know what I mean? It would at least be like, hey man, that was good. You know, you figured out something that got you through that 3, 5, whatever minutes that you were doing. Now come back next week with something that you wrote. You know what I mean?
But it may kill your career.
Not at an open mic the first time.
Oh, well, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. That's
trying to make people paranoid. We already got enough people scared enough to get on the fucking
no, I'm sorry. Not an open mic. I'm sorry. I was thinking about an actual show.
I'm saying if you go
don't do it at an actual show.
Oh,
though,
no, fuck. No, please. I have seen people go into other people.
Yeah.
We were talking about that last time, man.
Yeah.
I honestly, it's it can be a crutch, and I've seen musicians that have that crutch where they're like, it's like, I know damn well that you have original material that is fucking beautiful. Play it. Well, I'm still working on it. I haven't got that. No. You can only cover Sweet Child of Mine so many times before people are like, nah, fuck off.
Like every other cover band, like out there, like, okay, I'm gonna play this song, Sweet Child of Mine. Like they have this band, like they play the same old song, and you're just like, we have heard this before, like a lot of time in the radio, everywhere. You're just like, oh my god, that's what turns off a lot of people in the community. Like,
Right.
Oh man, we're gonna sit there.
See, and that's the musician. That kind of musician is what I appreciate.
Mhm.
See how passionate and how like jealous he is of his lyrics and his material,
Right.
and he encourages other people. Like, if you're gonna go up there, if you're gonna go on stage, if you're gonna perform, I strongly encourage you to bring your original material.
It's
If
like
you're gonna
being
do
you.
a cover, yeah. If
It's
you're
like
gonna
being
do a
yourself.
cover,
I'm just saying, don't be fundamental about it and be like,
mean,
if
I'm not-
somebody
oh,
comes
yeah.
up the first time and goes, look, I'm going to show you what I can do with somebody else's material.
Yeah,
And
like-
then, like, by the way, here's one by me. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
There's-
exactly.
I mean, I'm not to be pessimist or whatever. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going against covers. I'm not really like, oh, don't do covers at all. But I mean, I know that I've heard some bands where they do covers, and I'll be like, oh wow, it's cool. I mean, that's cool. Like they cover what Pantera song, they cover what else's song. You know, I mean, it's good to hear them, but then it's just like, don't do them all the time.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
do it
it's
all
always
the time.
it's always funny when you come across some pop band that goes like, "Well, that was all for our set, but you want us to do the Pantera?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like just only for that open mic, and that's it. I mean, we want to hear more of your material,
Of your
like
material,
what
yeah,
else?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
like,
no,
that's all.
I was gonna say one thing I do enjoy the hell out of is if I'm watching a live band and they just bust into a song and it takes a second to click, like, oh shit, it's not necessarily just a cover, but they're doing an interpretation here. Like, I like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I like
so
it,
going back to you, before you had a short intermission, I'm just fucking with Analyssa, y'all.
We went this whole way without saying that she got up to go to the restroom, and now you just gonna bring it in.
God damn it, y'all should know me by now.
You know what? I have to say, I've been admiring this nice detail that you have in your kitchen.
But your
that's
restroom ain't
really
worth shit. Is what
But
you're gonna
I don't
say.
know if you know this. I think your bathroom might have a slight leak.
I don't know if you know this, but I said that at the beginning. I said,
Oh,
excuse
okay.
my leaks.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
But thank you for putting it out there, guys. I have leaks.
okay, we've covered all the bases. We talked about music, creativity, and the leaks in the bathroom. And Freddy's asked his usual questions. We are coming up on hour and a half here. We are at an hour and a half. You guys want to throw out your social media? Let everybody know where you're going to be, where they can get a hold of you, and find out where you have been.
Right now, I don't have a social media page for my music. If you would like to friend me, I once in a while will upload snippets of my songs or recordings or videos. And you can find me at Analyssa Shultis. That's going to be on Facebook, ANALYSSA. Last name SHULTIS. You can find me live Fridays at El Mana Cuisine in Far on Newcomb Avenue.
Isn't
gonna
that
be-
that's Fridays?
We switched it to Fridays. It was Sundays, and now Fridays.
Nice.
That's going to be from 9 to 12. And you can also find me at Luna Cafe Saturdays, 9 to 12 as well.
Nice. I did not know that.
Nice.
And my social media, I'm go for City of Dawn, like Don, not Don, like Don Pepe.
I love that.
DAWN. Yes.
Yeah, DAWN, City of Dawn on Facebook, Instagram. What else? I don't really use Twitter that much, but Spotify, iTunes, and Bandcamp as well. I'm releasing a new album. It's going to be releasing on August 4th, digitally and physically. Digipack CD compact disc. It's going to be released on Bandcamp on August 4th. So, yeah, you guys are interested on that, it's there. And I'll be having some upcoming gigs, like I mentioned, Dallas, Austin. So if you're around the area, so yeah, I guess
Okay.
around that. Yeah.
Go find them, folks.